Hello. Good evening. I hope everybody is doing well. Welcome. If you're here with us, come and say hi in the chat. Let me know how your day's going. It's been like fluctuating between rainy and sunny here. And it's been rainy for like days. And yesterday was kind of sunny. So I'm like seeking the moments of sunshine. And I stood outside earlier, just like having my face in the sunshine while it was here. Welcome. If you are joining me for the first time, I'm glad to meet you. And I'd love to know how you came about hanging out with me tonight. If you're here again, thank you. And if it's been a while, nice to see you again. I am Lauren Lefkowitz. I'm an executive coach, and I have a tagline right here, fine as a trap. And if you don't know what that means, fine is the thing that we say we are when we're not actually fine. It's the way that we justify that like life just is, things just are. And it happens a lot in our career that we get a promotion or stretch project or assigned people to report to us or a leadership role without a raise or whatever it is. And then we justify all the things that surround us. Well, they couldn't give us a raise because their budget is tight. Well, they couldn't give me a raise because I have to earn it first. I'm so busy because I'm a VP or a CEO. And of course, that's what happens. And I say it doesn't have to be that way. I say that we can settle for fine, but fine is actually a trap that we put ourselves in when we say that we don't deserve more. And I think we all deserve more. I think we all deserve the world. And maybe that's idealist of me. And also, I've got some proof from changing my own life and working with clients to help them change their lives. So I work with CEOs, VPs, other executives, other leaders to help them figure out what is not working in their lives, what they actually want when they don't say, but I can't have, and how to get it and how to live the life that you actually want to be living. So welcome to Mindset Shifts and the What Ifs. This is a new show. This is our 6th episode, and here's how it works. Every week I spin a wheel to help us determine what the topic will be tonight, something to do with mindset shifts and all of the what ifs that come up in our brain. So I'm going to bring up a wheel, spin it, and whatever it lands on is what we will talk about tonight. If you have questions during the conversation, feel free to put them in the chat, or depending on the topic, you may be able to text me questions. So let's see what our topic is. Oh, and we've got a comment. Hey, Kristen, welcome. It only feels idealist when you haven't experienced it. Yes, you are helping so many people, and I'm stoked about this new show that you're doing. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, it totally feels idealist if you haven't experienced it. And in fact, most of my new clients come to me telling me all the things they can't have. I'm willing to give up pay if I can get a job I like better, or I want a higher title, but I don't need a raise. And I say you can have all of it. And I know you can, because I've worked with people just like you and have helped them get it. And most of my clients end up doubling their salaries and not working 1 billion hours a week to get that. So thanks for that plug, Kristen. So glad you're here. Okay, let's spin the wheel and see what we come up with tonight. And here we go. This is the most fun. All right, let's give it a spin, see what our topic is. Ooh, so good. I say it every week. So good. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Okay, that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So you have probably heard of fight, flight, and freeze. If you haven't, they are the natural and automatic reactions we have when situations come at us. And sometimes they are actual emergency situations, like, oh, there's a giant fire in front of us. And in those cases, we want to do something, right? But our bodies never lost that primitive reaction response to like a lion's coming, it's going to eat me, I better do something, or a lion's coming, I'm going to stay right here and get eaten because I don't know how to move, I'm going to freeze. And we never really evolved out of those reactions. And so we have learned behaviors and some instinctual behaviors that make us react to things in a certain way. And so, oh, yes, Kristen, me too. Fauna is what I resonate with the most, especially in burnout. I mean, I'm just going to say like flat out, that is what I experience for the most part. It's very challenging to get me into fight mode unless I'm dealing with like, I don't know, a doctor who's gaslighting me. I'm like willing to stand up and fight, but I wasn't always. So fight is we get up and we put up our fists and we're gonna win. We're gonna be in it. We're gonna dive all the way in. We're gonna put out the fire with our bare hands, or we're gonna fight that lion and punch it in the mouth so it doesn't eat us. Flight is like run as fast as you freaking can. This fire is spreading. This lion is coming at us. All you have to do is be faster than the guy behind you. Freeze is just stand there, right? It's that deer in headlights feeling. And those are the three that we've all heard of, right? And if you think about it in the workplace, fight is the, if you're sitting in sort of a meeting with people, fight is the person who's always reactive. Anything that you assign or anything that you ask for a shift or a change on, or any decision the group is making, the fight person is going to come out and tell you why it's not going to work, why we shouldn't do it this way, why it's going to be more work for them, why it's hard to do, why it doesn't work, right? The flight person is going to, when somebody says, okay, who's going to wake up in the morning thinking about this? The flight person goes like this, or says like, hey, everyone, I got to get to another meeting. I'll check in with you later, and never will check in. They want to get out of the room. They don't want to be in the situation. They don't want to be in the crisis. They just want out. The freeze person just sits there. They may nod slightly. Their eyes are usually open pretty wide. They're watching what's going on and sort of freaking out on the inside. And when somebody turns to them and says, hey, Lauren, what do you think? The freeze person is going to go, whatever you guys think is great. I don't know, whatever you think. Right. And so the fawn person is the newer aspect of this model. And the fawner is the people pleaser. So the fawner in this same meeting, when somebody says who's going to wake up in the morning thinking about this, the fawner says, I will. Oh, I'll take care of it. I'll take it on. I'm happy to lead it. Or somebody else volunteers to lead it. Hey, Kristen, just let me know if you need help. I'm happy to help. Right. So the fawner is the person whose panic response, whose concerned response is to react by putting in extra. And Kristen said, Kristen, you are all on this tonight. I should just bring you in. I so appreciate it. As a leader, it's so incredibly helpful to be aware of these subtle shifts in how people react when their stress response is engaged. Yes, absolutely. And you feel called out as the fawner, right? Me too, right? Every time I read about the fawner, every time I talk about the fawner, I'm like a little bit embarrassed for me, and also a little bit grateful that this has been identified, right? And that it's not just, do you fight the decision, or do you fight the crisis, or do you fight with the person who's in the room with you saying something that you don't feel is right? Do you run away from the situation, or do you stand in place? There is a fourth option, and that is to be the overdoer, right? So I joke that my job title at my last job was the vice president of whatever you need, because I established myself as a person who knew how to do things. I'm a proud member of the How Hard Could It Be Club. And like, I can figure stuff out. I'm good at work. It's like a thing I'm really good at. And I have always been really good at. And I'm really proud of that from the one perspective. From the other perspective, in my last job, I was the vice president of HR. As soon as I was hired, they were like, hey, can you take on the operations team? Sure, I'll do it. And then they said, we don't know where meetings and conferences should belong. And Nobody's ever really taken it on. It always reported to the CEO, but that's not appropriate either. Are you willing to take that on? Sure, I'll take it. And Kristen, yeah, a little embarrassed and so grateful. Building my own awareness around this has allowed me to learn about my overdoing tendencies. Yes. Oh, yes. I'm going to talk about being a doer and having that be part of our identity in a moment. So thanks for bringing that up. But the fawner in me, who really just wants everybody to be happy with me, and really genuinely from my heart wants everybody to be happy and to feel served. The vice president of whatever you need, though, does that at the expense of ourselves, right? So as the vice president of whatever you need, I was overseeing HR operations and meetings, which, operations sort of make sense. And in a smaller organization, like it for sure made sense for us. Meetings absolutely did not make sense. It should have been under marketing or fundraising or something, programs, something else. I interim managed our fundraising team. I interim managed our marketing team. I interim managed our finance team. And like the list goes on. The door would open and somebody would say, oh no, what are we going to do? And I would say, I'll take care of it. The good part of that is that I really served the company well. I really impacted the organization while I was there. The bad is that when I had a freak accident in my home and I broke both of my shoulders and I was out for 4 months, there were a lot of people who didn't know how things worked in the office. So that was a lesson that I shouldn't be the only person who knows things, because while the fawning makes you feel good for a while, and sometimes for a long while, so that you get used to it feeling good and you do even more overdoing, because it's like almost like an addiction, right? Like every time I would pack away a new thing, like a squirrel putting nuts in my cheeks for the winter, I would think nobody was going to notice I was doing it, and I would take another thing on. So I just kept adding to my plate, and eventually it didn't feel as good. But I thought that my contribution, and I have a lot of clients who feel this way, that my contribution was important enough that it mattered less what I needed. Right. And Kristen said, pros are impact and experience, and service, right? Like I love service. I love being in service too. Cons being the single point of failure. Yes. And another con being the single point of failure, and also being the pressure point, right? Like everybody counts on you. So if you are too busy, or you are on vacation, or you want to go on vacation, or you need a day off or an afternoon off, there are things that just stop because you're not there. There are meetings that just don't happen. There are decisions that just don't get made. Even if you give people autonomy, which I always try to do, there are decisions that don't get made because they're like, well, we need Lauren in the room. Well, why don't we wait till Lauren gets back? Right. And yeah, totally an addiction. Absolutely. There is a super charge, a super rush of adrenaline and endorphins and dopamine and all the good feelings that come with knowing. And I didn't even need the praise for it. Right. There are some people who are praise hounds, which is also an okay way to be. Some people, their love language is praise. That's not my love language. My love language is quality time. And so if I am thinking in terms of quality time, I want my quality time to be impactful and fun. And if it can be, right? Not everything's fun, but a lot of things are. And so for me, it was less about the praise and more about how else can I serve? Who else can I help? And what happens when that is your baseline is that, and with any of these reactions, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, it's hard to say those all in a row. With any of those reactions, they can all become an addiction, right? And when you're no longer in emergency or crisis or, urgent kinds of situations, you've become used to being the person, right? So we all know that person who comes into the meeting and we're trying to pre-think of the arguments and the objections that will come up from them because they are a fighter. They always want it to be the way it's always been because that's the way we've always done it, or their new way. And if you don't want to do that, they're going to fight it. And so you think of the fighter, you think of that freeze person, and you're like, ooh, I don't want to put her on the spot because I know that she's going to freeze and she's just going to say yes. And then she's going to be upset about it later. Right. So we all know people who have these reactions. And also, they're not bad ways to be unless it's out of control for you. And so as a fawner in particular, the overdoing becomes how you are being. And so when we talk about being and doing, which I talk about a lot, we can all do the same thing, right? If we go back to the meeting example, we're all in the same meeting. We're all having the same conversation. How we be, for lack of better grammar, how we be in that meeting affects what we do then and what we do later, right? So if I am being fight in a meeting, then I'm coming up already with my defenses up, already like mentally with my arms crossed. And I'm not going to listen to anything. I'm going to wait until I can sneak in my argument, tell you what's wrong with your ideas. And so I will not be in a place where listening is a good quality for me, where patience is a good quality for me. If I'm in flight mode, all I'm thinking is get me out of this. I'm not going to be a good contributor to the conversation. I'm not going to be a good brainstormer. If I'm in freeze mode, I'm not going to be great at anything, right? In that meeting, all I'm going to be thinking is like, oh my gosh, don't call on me. Oh no, what if they call on me? Oh, I don't know. I don't think I have anything important to say. What if they want me to talk about the thing I've been working on that isn't done to the place where I thought it would be done yet, right? And so there's that freeze. So you can lose your contribution. And the fawner, the boundaryless fawner, who I have the absolute most empathy for because it is who I am and who I have been, the fawner is going to take the half a second of silence when nobody volunteers and volunteer for things. And so if you're leading that meeting, you're like, oh, I feel bad because this hasn't been assigned to anybody. And I know Lauren's going to raise her freaking hand and she's going to take it on and it's going to be too much, right? So one of the values of identifying who you typically are, and look, we're all different versions of these at different times. There are things that make me freeze that if you saw me in those situations and you saw me freeze, you'd be like, you know how to handle that situation, Lauren, right? There are things that you would expect me to be in the fight on, and I'm running away from it. I don't want to get into the conversation. And like reasons, right? We all have reasons. We all have stuff that we feel comfortable or slightly uncomfortable getting into, but we will get into it anyway. We all have things that are sort of hot button issues that make us put up our dukes and fight. So we all fall into these categories at some time or another, but most of us have a default one. And my default one is the fawner. Now, we talked a little bit earlier, and Kristen gave a couple of examples of the pros and cons of that. The beauty in that, the like really beautiful and amazing thing is that if you really identify which one you are or which ones you are, most typically, and you get to know that part of you and really embrace how it has served you and really examine how it can hurt you or how it has hurt you, then you get to choose. The being part of us, the part of us that's underneath all of the things that we do, and as humans we are taught to do, under the doing is the being, is the human person who is a way or of a myriad of ways, who has the feelings, who brings people joy, who's a catalyst for change, who's a freaking firecracker, right? When you describe who people are, you don't describe what they do for you. You'll say like, oh, Megan is so warm. She's so kind. Oh, I love being around Joe. He's hilarious. right? You're not going to tell the joke Joe told you that one time. You're going to refer to Joe as a person who is a kind of way, right? And that's how we describe people. So the being that we are then has a set of automatic reactions. And then our being shifts into like survival mode or saboteur mode or imposter syndrome mode, however you sort of identify that. Sometimes I call that our monsters, our internal monsters. But if you know your F, your fighter, flighter, fleer, freezer, or fawner, then you get to choose, right? So I know that my automatic response when somebody says like, oh, I need help with this, is to say like, I'll do it. Count me in. How can I help? I'm here for you, right? So I have learned to pause. I have learned to decide instead of just automatically replying. And I have learned to be with my decision then, right? Because when you start shifting how your responses are, you may feel worried, you may feel guilty, you may feel angry or sad or resentful or freaking so excited that you never want to be in that mode again. But they are protective modes. They emerge from us in the way that they do for a reason. And as we get more confident in who we are, how we are, and how we want things to be, we give ourselves the opportunity to be in choice. And so now, as still a fawner, as like a full-time recovering people pleaser, when somebody asks me to do something or asks who can do something and looks around like the generic room or posts something on LinkedIn and says, hey, LinkedIn community, I need your help. That's when I get to say, what decision would I like to make? What might be the path if I say I'll do it? What might be the path if I say I won't do it? What might be the path if I stay silent on it? What might be the path if I just wait and see if other people stand up, right? Like there's a part of me, I think, that took away some opportunity from other people by always raising my hand. Kristen says, yes, the pause allows for choice. Exactly. Yeah. So I had someone ask me for something the other day, and my initial reaction was, of course I will. And then I thought, you know what? No, nope. Before I respond, let me think about that. And I recognized that thing that I was being asked for, which was a fine thing to ask for. I wasn't angry that the person asked, was actually something I really only do for clients and really only in the scope of our work. And so I said no. And also I was willing to do something else that was much smaller. And so I let the person know that. And I felt actually pretty good about it. And old me would have said yes, would have done the thing, and then would have thought like, I wish I'd only reserved that for my clients. And Kristen says the intentionality leads to building that life that you deserve, but sitting in the uncomfortable experience of shifting your response is critical. Yes, so brilliant. It's true. It's the intentionality around how you live your whole life. And nobody shifts that overnight. It took me a long time in working with my own coach, in working with myself. It takes my clients time. That's why I don't do single sessions. But it takes time to really embrace how you want things to be and little steps that you can take to get there. So if this is resonating for you, if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a total fawner, this is how I thought my whole life had to be, and now you've given me the tiniest bit of hope that it doesn't have to be that way, and you're a corporate leader, set up a strategy call with me, because I would love to talk to you about it. I would love to talk to you about how I've worked on it myself, how I've worked with my clients, and how you might work on it for yourself, whether we work together or whether you work on it on your own. I'm going to end there. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Kristen, I want you on the show with me. So let's have a DM and see if we can work out one of the weeks coming up where you can come on with me and spin the wheel and be in the conversation with me. Thank you so much for really being in the conversation with me tonight, Kristen. And if you've joined us, thanks for joining and listening in. And if you're watching the replay, leave us a comment and let us know what you thought. One last comment from Kristen: absolutely takes time. Love that you've used your expertise to help people shift and experience this transformation. Oh, thank you so much. That really means a lot. I appreciate it. Have an awesome night, everyone. So great to see you.